guys, how's it going? I wanted to make this video today because there's a whole market that a lot of people don't really pay attention to when it comes to rental properties, and that's the midterm rental market. As per usual, there are a ton of issues popping up with both short and long-term rental laws and regulations, which means one or the other isn't always an option for someone. You might be able to host a short-term rental, but maybe you'd like to be able to offer long-term stays without committing to a full long-term rental. Likewise, you might legally be allowed to own long-term rentals, but not be allowed to host short-term rentals. So either way, midterm rentals are most likely something you can add to your portfolio to help mitigate risk. Midterm rentals require a few key elements to be successful. One of those elements is location. When I'm looking for my next midterm rental destination, I'm looking for an area that is geographically close to large medical facilities. The majority of guests who we host at our midterm rentals are traveling medical professionals. This means that having a property within 3 to 5 miles from a major hospital or transitway is key. I'm also looking for areas that offer a high degree of safety and quiet, as many of our midterm rental guests work long hours and need a quiet place to rest after their shifts. On top of this, I have to make sure the price is right so that we can attract the right market without demanding too much. And considering the pricing for midterm rentals, I leverage data from the long-term rental market in my area. Platforms like Zillow and Rental Meter do a great job in providing long-term rental rates for most markets. Then I look at comparable listings on midterm rental platforms. One of the more popular platforms I use is Furnish Finder. Furnish Finder provides rental rates as well as supply and demand details for comparable midterm rental listings in my market. And then I leverage data from the short-term rental market. I review comps or comparable properties on platforms like Airbnb to evaluate rates and demand. If there aren't many comparable properties available, it means that supply may be limited. In markets where supply is limited, pricing is generally higher. Based on the amenities in my property, my financial goals, and demand in the market, I can determine a rate that is either below, on par with, or slightly above the average rental in my market. From there, we have to figure out ways to get attention of midterm rental tenants, and then we have to figure out what to include in our properties to make them want to stay there. The best way to effectively attract quality midterm tenants is to network. What I mean by that is midterm rental hosting platforms like Furnish Finder, they're great, but they're only just the beginning. The midterm rental space is still growing, and not everyone who needs a midterm rental uses a hosting platform to find it. This is why it's critical to leverage other means to attract midterm tenants. A great, albeit unconventional example of this is social media. There are a ton of new and emerging Facebook communities and groups that are geared toward helping traveling professionals find good places to stay. As part of your marketing strategy, you need to be a part of these groups. Tell people about your property and make real connections with potential guests. Don't be afraid to advocate for your business and let people know what you've got. A well-appointed place to stay if they need one. Chances are that if you don't talk about your business and services, most people, not even your friends, will remember that you offer them. As far as what to include in your properties to make guests want to book with you, it goes back to what your target market is going to need. Much like short-term rentals, there are always a few key features to keep in mind when setting up a successful midterm rental. It's always a good strategy to think about your guests and how to best serve them. We house a lot of travel nurses, so we know that these guests need things like dark shades on the windows, as many of them work off hours and sleep in the day. Dark shades block the daylight, which helps our guests sleep better. We also house a lot of families at our midterm rentals. These guests spend a lot of time in the homes, so comfortable furniture is a must. Plush, soft touch fabrics and seating help the home feel more warm, cozy, and inviting. So be sure to include those in your midterm rentals. Safety is also an important part of appealing to midterm rental guests. Like most travelers, midterm guests want to feel safe in the environment. They want to have peace of mind that their well-being and their belongings are going to be protected. Don't you want that? And welcoming home in a safe, walkable neighborhood is always a plus. But as people stay at your property, it's going to need to be maintained. All properties require maintenance at some point. You're not going to get away from this. And midterm rentals, they're no different. The most important thing is to have support in place to fix things when they stop working. And from my experience, the best support comes in the form of a team that keeps communication lines open with guests. This way, if there's something that does go wrong, and again, it will, the issue is identified and timely solution is implemented. Plus, they can be in charge of proactive monitoring and maintenance. The light bulbs will still work, the water will still get hot, and the window blinds will open and close properly. These proactive checks prevent frustrating issues, protect the guest experience, and keep operations smooth sailing. And this isn't the only thing that goes into keeping operations afloat. There's a ton more. There are always local laws and regulations, seasonal changes, a multitude of software tools that you can use, and of course, unexpected issues to mitigate. Each of those topics have a ton of depth, but we'll brush over each of them. And if you want a video that goes more in depth on a particular topic, then comment down below and we'll make one. The first thing we'll brush over is local laws and regulations. Now I say this for all kinds of property rentals. Know the local rental laws and the regulations. You have to know these guys. Do the research up front to ensure that you don't make costly mistakes in setting up or running a rental business. Also, regulations are a great thing. They define the laws of the land and create a sandbox that all operators are playing in, which ensures that everyone is playing the game fairly. Now, in terms of seasonal changes, it really comes down to keeping a close eye on performance. So just from looking at your performance, you should be aware of when it's time to pivot or change things up. In our market, for example, we have points in the year where occupancy is really high, and then others where occupancy is typically lower. Considering this, sometimes it's best to pivot from a short-term rental strategy and to a mid-term rental strategy. We look at trends throughout the market and then plan proactively to pick the best time to make the switch. You should be doing the same thing. But regardless of the market your rental property is in, you have to be taking advantage of the different softwares that are available to you in order to see success. A big part of maintaining a successful mid-term rental is marketing it correctly. And we use Furnish Finder because it's easy to navigate. But there are a couple of other major short-term rental platforms that work well to incorporate mid-term rentals as well. For example, the Airbnb for Work marketing push has made the platform really attractive for the ever-growing population of traveling workers. Most times, these workers require homes for use on a month-to-month basis. Plus, the platform now makes it really easy to find hosts and guests who can accommodate longer stays. And thank goodness they did, because there have been some recent events that brought some serious attention to the midterm rental market. The biggest eye-opener for the opportunity in the midterm rental space arose during the pandemic. The short-term vacation market took a huge hit and travel literally stopped. Vacations were even put on hold or canceled altogether. People were forced to quarantine in place, and it created the perfect environment for the remote work industry to surge. But the best thing about quarantining in place was that people could stay in place wherever they wanted. Workers found entertainment and ease in making homes all over the nation, and often for weeks and months at a time. But naturally, this sudden jump in demand meant that there was a higher volume of unexpected problems for hosts. For us, we learned that success with the rental properties really just comes down to having a good support team for guests. Truth be told, since assembling a quality support team, we haven't had many issues at all with guest disputes or unexpected issues. The main reason why is because we have proactively managed, meaning we set expectations up front and look for possible problems before they arise. So for example, if there's an unexpected maintenance issue and we know that for whatever reason it won't be taken care of before the guest's arrival, we'll let them know ahead of time. We communicate the plan in place to correct the issue, as well as a timeline for when they can expect the issue to be resolved. If they have any concerns, we keep the door open for communication until they're content. An open communication line is one of the best tools in place to keep guests satisfied. Oh, but hey, speaking of keeping guests satisfied, I want to hear what you think about our videos. What do you want to hear more of, or what do you want to hear about? What do you like, or what do you dislike? Please let us know down below so we can make better videos for you guys. Okay, the last thing I want to go over in this video is really making sure that all the parties involved are happy, because that's the best way to make sure that your business stays running smoothly. This really branches into two main areas of focus: the property owner and the guest. First, to give everybody the best shot at a happy transaction, we have to screen the guests ahead of time. That way, we're sure that the guest gets everything they need and the property owner doesn't have to worry about anything. Which usually include questions like, what's the reason the guest is coming to stay with us, right? Most times, midterm guests are looking for a place to stay while they're working in the area or nearby. And the potential guest responses should be in line with this same expectation. Asking these screening questions helps prevent poor experiences for both the guests and the hosts. Maybe you find out the guest party has more people than expected. but asking about that ahead of time means that you can disclose that information to them. Comfort is a priority for midterm stays, especially since the guests are staying for a longer while. Okay, so from there, we have to negotiate the lease with the guests. In negotiating lease terms, it's important to first understand the baseline. A baseline establishes the rules, the restrictions, and basic requirements for the property. Are pets an absolute no? Have you implemented a strict no smoking policy? What is your lowest acceptable rent amount? These are questions that you need to have figured out in advance of negotiating lease terms. Only once the baseline is established can any negotiations begin. At the end of the day, there may be some requests or situational nuances that might be considered if it makes sense for both you and your potential renter. Not knowing the baseline puts you in a position of risk, where you might promise more than you can afford to deliver. This way you can ensure that the guest is happy with the property before they even arrive. Meaning all you have to worry about now is keeping the property owner happy. When co-hosting a property or managing an arbitrage, it's really important to keep an open communication line between yourself and the property owner. Our property owners know that they can reach out to us via email, text, or phone if they have questions, concerns, or just need updates. Open communication lines increase transparency in these relationships, which works best and well to maintain a high level of mutual trust. But I personally recommend having regular business hours to keep your time protected. This way you don't have to respond to questions or messages at all hours of the day. And you aren't being rude because it's not uncommon to have business hours in place. Set the expectation up front in the relationship to prevent any confusion and save yourself and the property owners you work with a ton of headaches. To put it simply, setting expectations and maintaining open lines of communication is a key part of keeping the positive vibes flowing between the property owners and the guests that you work with. Nobody wants to feel ignored, left out, or left in the dark. Be transparent when things are running smoothly, and even more so if there are challenges. The people you work with appreciate open communication, and if you provide that, it's a surefire way to help them feel supported and let them know that you care about them and the relationship. So hopefully this video gave you guys a really strong starting point on the midterm rental market. Obviously, I can tell you exactly how to do every single thing in one video, but maybe in the future, we can go more in depth on the specifics of different parts of the process. I really want to open the floor to the people who are watching so we can help as many people as possible. So please comment down below what you want to hear about and what you want to see next.